Hey everyone! If you're a manager, you know that feeling, right? You've got this great idea, but turning it into a real successful thing, that's the tough part. Well, today we're going to break down the one skill that makes all the difference, project management. Let's dive right in. And just so you know, what we're covering today is actually the first chapter of a 5-part course on project management methodologies from Virtualization Options LLC. We're starting with the absolute fundamentals to build a really solid foundation for you and your team. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with what project management even is. Then, we'll get into why having a method actually matters. We'll look at a core concept called the project management triangle, break down the 2 huge approaches out there, and wrap up with how to pick the right path for your team. All right, so let's get into that first point. Before we can talk about all the different fancy methodologies, we've got to be on the same page. We need a clear shared idea of what project management really means. Okay, here's the official definition. The key things to grab onto here are disciplined application, which means this isn't just winging it, and defined constraints, which, trust me, we're going to talk a lot more about in a second. At the end of the day, it's all about bringing order to the work so you can deliver something valuable. I love this quote because it just makes so much sense. Think about it. You would never, ever build a house without a detailed blueprint and a step-by-step construction plan, right? Of course not. The exact same logic applies to any project you're launching. It's the plan and the process together. Which brings us to a super important question. Why does having a formal methodology even matter? Can't we just get stuff done? Well, the simple answer is that a methodology is the one thing that stands between organized, forward progress and just, chaos. Now this slide, this is where it gets real. I think we've all lived on the left side of this screen at some point, constantly putting out fires, deadlines flying by, budgets completely blown. It's stressful. But on the right, that's the goal, being proactive, having a shared way of working, and making steady, organized progress. That's the dream. Okay, this next idea is one of the most fundamental concepts in all of project management. Seriously, getting a handle on this triangle is the key to making smart decisions and trade-offs every single day. So let me ask you this. How do you actually juggle all the competing demands on your projects? When everyone wants everything and they want it yesterday. The answer is all about understanding your constraints. See, every single project is squeezed by these 3 things: scope, time, and cost. The best way to think of them is like 3 connected gears. If a stakeholder wants to add more scope, the what, then you have to adjust something else. You either need more time or more cost. You can't just change one without affecting the others. And right in the middle of it all, holding everything together, is quality. That's the standard you just can't compromise on. All right, now we get to the big one, the great philosophical debate in the project management world. Pretty much every methodology you'll ever hear about falls into one of 2 main camps, traditional or agile. So here's the absolute core difference. Traditional, or what some people call predictive, is built on the idea that you can figure out and plan everything perfectly from the very start. Agile, or adaptive, assumes the total opposite, that you're going to learn as you go, and that change isn't a problem to be avoided, it's actually a good thing. And this analogy, this makes it all click. You use a traditional approach when you're building a bridge. You need that plan to be 100% perfect before you start digging, because changing it halfway through is a disaster. But you use Agile when you're creating a mobile app. You want to get a simple version out there fast, see what users think, and then adapt and improve based on their feedback. Okay, so you get the big divide now, traditional versus agile. But how in the world do you actually choose? Well, this last section is all about giving you a practical way to make that first big decision. The good news is you don't have to change everything all at once. Just start by asking these 4 simple questions. First, look at the project itself. Are the requirements pretty much set in stone, or are they going to evolve? Second, be honest about your team's skills and how they work. Third, think about your industry. Are there strict rules you have to follow? And finally, and this is probably the most important advice, start small. Just pilot a new way of working with one team and see what you learn. And that really brings us to the core of it all. If you take away just one thing from our time together, let it be this question right here. Before you start your next project, before you pick a tool, before you do anything, ask yourself and your team, are we building a bridge or are we building an app? Because your answer to that question defines your very next step.